Bitcoin has experienced a thus far well-needed little bounce on its key support zone between $40,700 and $42,700. But what's new in crypto, marathon and crypto space, or Cardano to be precise? Well, that's what we'll look into in today's episode. But before doing so, please note that nothing of what I say constitutes financial advice, and if you appreciate the content I'm about to share, then please return the flavor by licking the like and subscribe buttons. Let's now dig into the various timeframes one by one. Based on what we can see right now, Bitcoin is trading right at the lower bullish red line from below. Unless it can break above this, any consistent RSI action below this line is what we commonly refer to as a bearish motorway. And this is where the RSI hovers around when the price is at its weakest. Hence, for obvious reasons, we do not want Bitcoin to find too much resistance here. If anything, we need to break above it, and the sooner the better. If or when we were to break above, we will face technical resistance at the next resistance zone, which also happens to coincide with the EMA ribbons. This surely might pose a challenge, yet one thing I will pay extra attention to is this chart right here. This chart combines Bitcoin's actual price with that of the Fear and Greed Index. As we can see, each price has a different Fear and Greed reading attached to it. If a recovery in Bitcoin were to turn green too swiftly, I will brace for impact for further downside. What we need for a sustainable recovery, in my opinion, is for people to remain skeptical despite rallying prices. Like an old cat who's finally made peace with the fact that that son of a bitch of a laser cannot be caught, everyone who's been disappointed from each failed attempt at new highs must be burned severely enough and think of it as another sucker's rally before we're in fact ready to reach new all-time highs. On the 8-hour chart, we're currently trading right within the EMA ribbons. These will likely pose as resistance, for I sure doubt we'll break it on the first go here. On a good note, however, we did get a lower bullish red closing yesterday. This is one of two correct lower bullish red settings on the 8-hour chart. It's one of those complex cases that has more than one line. I'm not gonna stall on that. The key thing here is just that it holds up. Though with that said, this setting has given us some mediocre results in the recent past, and whether this one here will be one of those or in fact a good one remains to be seen. This is where I begin to worry. Sure, we have broken above this meek little sideways range, which to be honest wasn't that significant in the first place. Though what really worries me is how the RSI is currently trading right at the upper bearish blue from below. And all this after having failed to find solid ground on the lower bullish red on its way up. We sure were close, but we weren't close enough, so no cigar there. In this sense, we're still moving around in a bearish blue RSI channel. And except for this failed attempt at a bullish break around Christmas, Bitcoin has been stuck in a bearish blue channel all the way back to its near all-time high. And this flirtatious position right now, as in on the very line, poses a high-risk area to be overcome before we can draw a sigh of relief. But not only that, for even if we were to swap to a bullish red channel, the upside tends to be limited unless the RSI has found good foothold at the very reversal point. In this case, we were about 30 cents away from a lower bullish red to set the stage for a local low bullish reversal. Later we've talked about Marathon and how promising it looks on the 2-day chart with the channel support and the EMA 200. If however we zoom on to the daily chart, the RSI looks absolutely awful. It's stuck in a bad place, and this alone, just like in Bitcoin, poses me to red alert. I'm not saying it'll roll over right here and die like a clapping seal. No, a bounce into the mid-30s should be feasible regardless of what. But unless we find a dynamic closing on the lower bullish red after doing so, such recovery would simply be paving the way for further downside to follow. Of course, this could still be that bullish reversal we've been looking for, even if we were to not get that lower bullish red closing of ours, yet it would still greatly affect the odds in our favor if it were to actually do so. Hence, what I want to see on the daily chart, both in Bitcoin as well as in Marathon, is for a recovered RSI that ultimately finds its way to a lower bullish red closing. If we proceed to Marathon's 2-hour chart, we're indeed well groomed for such playout. That, however, does by no account mean it will actually happen, but we've got a good shot at it. And other than that, Marathon 2 is within a distinct bearish blue RSI channel and does, until proven otherwise, look wobbly indeed on this particular time frame. For until we get reason to believe that any of these consolations are a reversal, they are statistical continuation for lower prices to follow. In this sense, the two things we may rest upon for a reversal to actually occur is if we were to see a lower bullish red closing on any of the time frames, or if the EMA 200 on the 2-day chart in fact were to hold up. And on the 1-hour chart, Marathon has just run into difficulties amidst the upper bearish blue line. And to refresh the memory of everyone out there, the upper bearish blue line is in itself an overall max pain type of resistance whenever an underlying is in a bear trend. And as we know, a bear trend is signified by a bearish blue RSI channel. And what mostly catches my attention here is how the Mara 1-hour RSI behaves in accordance to that of Bitcoin's 4-hour one. This sense, the real downside in the short to midterm in Marathon is how the 1-hour RSI, just like that of the 4-hour in Bitcoin, briefly failed to make a lower bullish red touch before proceeding up. For as we can see, it did not touch. And this makes those two RSI moves in Bitcoin and Marathon highly fragile over the upcoming few days. Yesterday on Twitter, I announced some inherent strength in Cardano. Cardano is back within its sideways range and is currently trading at the primary trend support, as in this diagonal line right here. And as we can see, it's found a nice solid bounce on that very line. And on top of that, Cardano briefly touched the EMA 100 line, lightly like a dancing ballerina. And if that weren't enough, the RSI on the weekly is lurking about just in the region for a prospect lower bullish red line. Though as we don't have enough data and as this corona bottom is too low to qualify, we yet don't know what the real value is. Though even if this were to be the correct level and we were to be given a lower bullish red closing on the weekly, the only downside to this is that we're approaching the line from high RSI levels. This, on the other hand, is typical behavior during fourth wave corrections, at which the lower bullish red constitutes the max pain on the downside. And if we take a look at Cardano versus Bitcoin on the 2-day chart, we find this little beauty right here. By the way, this is my saving the best for last. Look at this. If this doesn't get your juices flowing, then you should do yourself a favor and watch the RSI trilogy right away. It should be a criminal offense to have missed out on it thus far. This channel's very magnum opus. Now, the previous two times we got a signal here, Cardano outperformed that of Bitcoin by 2,500 and 230% respectively. The noteworthy part in this case, however, is how it's made that dynamic move from the low RSI levels and via the green 50 line before closing on the lower bullish red from above. For these, ladies and gentlemen, are the prime RSI buy candidates that we initially look for. As I abstain from doing anything rash, I will take some time to consider my strategy. I am leaning towards repositioning some of my marathons and remaining liquid cash into Cardano. The thing holding me back at the time, however, are 1. The overwhelming technical resistance right above on the 2-day chart. Although with that said, the RSI strategies are always way earlier than any other technicals. Always. That is, given that they don't get stopped out. And 2, I need to fully get my head around Bitcoin's internal strength compared to that of other alts. I just don't buy into the sporadic notion that Cardano would grossly outperform all other alts if Bitcoin were to show signs of short to mid-term weakness. I leave you with these final words. We're not here to just do TA, we're here to build technical cases. And there's a whole world of a difference between the two. And until I have a good solid answer to the aforementioned questions, I'll thread carefully.